Hey guys, before I start the podcast, a quick introduction. My name is Warnit and I'm the founder of Pet Excel Marketing. Pet Excel Marketing is a marketing agency that specifically works with pet businesses. Over the years, we have worked with pet food brand, pet relocation businesses, pet SaaS companies, pet clothing brand, cat food businesses, dog grooming services, and many other product and service-based pet businesses globally. Our services includes everything from creating graphics to running your ad campaign. Not only that, we have built amazing websites and apps for pet businesses. So if you have a pet business and would like us to help grow it, click on the first link in the description to book a call with our team. Now enjoy the podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Petpreneur Podcast. I'm your host Warnit, and today we have an incredibly inspiring guest joining us. Michael, the founder of Blue Line K-9, has built a reputation as one of the top dog trainers in the industry. His journey, shaped by both his personal experience with PTSD and his deep passion for dogs, led him to create a unique training philosophy that blends science, empathy, and real-world results. From starting out as a solo trainer to growing his business into a powerhouse with a skilled team, Michael has been through it all. Today, he's here to share his experience, insight, and valuable advice for anyone looking to make an impact in the pet world. Michael, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I can't wait to get started and seeing who we can inspire to get their journey rocking and rolling
Yep,
for
yep,
themselves.
yep. So yeah, let's get started. I would love to hear a little bit on your personal journey and how do you get into dog training and what sparked your passion for it.
Yeah, so my journey is wild. So I
Mhm.
grew up in North New Jersey, and it had a very unique childhood that I guess shaped me. Right, so I'm the youngest of four, and I always look for that avenue. My parents always said, if you want to get something, you got to go out there and earn it and work for it and do those things. And that's what
Mhm.
sort of started. When I was a young kid, I started working at 12, 13 years old.
Wow.
Then I started my own carpet cleaning company at the age of 16, sold it years
Wow.
later, joined the Marine Corps, and the journey continued.
Mhm.
When I first started that entrepreneurial journey,
Mhm.
it was probably the craziest, wildest, path I ever took. And the craziest thing to say about it is that I was still in high school, right? Where most people are doing that in their 20s,
Yeah.
30s,
Yeah.
40s, 50s, right? Is then they're doing those things. So I lucked out where I got to learn a lot of mistakes as a
Mhm.
teenager
Mhm.
instead of as an adult with wife, kids, and things like that. So then I joined the Marines and
Mhm.
changed the trajectory of everything.
Yeah.
There's no other way to describe that one.
Mhm.
After I got in the Marine Corps and um, journey was the journey. Came home after serving in Iraq
Wow.
and things, and
Mhm.
had some issues and didn't know how to solve them. So I became a police officer because it's the only career I knew. Well, it's the only career that sort of matched up to the military. And I didn't
Mhm.
actually want to be an entrepreneur. It was not something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So from my childhood journey of it, I didn't want to be a business owner. I didn't want to do those things.
Mhm.
So I was a police officer, and then my girlfriend, now wife, uh, then said, you got to get, change your anger issues and focus on hobbies. And I went and got a dog. His name was Bruno.
Mhm.
And that's where my journey started as a trainer, because that's where
Yeah.
it was like, man, I just want to be the best at this and working for him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, my wife and I, we needed some extra money.
Mhm.
She'd gotten hurt at her job. So we're like, well, the only thing I know how to do to make extra money or supplement was to start a business. So we
Yeah.
started Blue Line Canine.
Mhm.
And originally it was, we'll just do it to make some extra money to pay for the training and just supplement some things. And
Mhm.
that journey went into, well, I only wanted to work with police and military and working dogs. That was like my passion, because that's what I was, right? I was a police
Mhm.
officer. I was a former military,
Mhm.
being a Marine. And, as we were going out there, what we were getting is a lot of behavior rehabilitation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Tons of it.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, this is ridiculous. How many people are struggling with this?
Mhm.
So I decided that I needed to focus on preventing dog aggression and dog issues and all these things. So then I started rebuilding the company to fix more of puppies. So I was like, man, if I can get to the dogs prior to them having reactivity and all these other issues, then I wouldn't have to do as many rehabilitations, right? It
Yeah.
would just be, we would solve the problem prior.
Mhm.
And that was our focus. And then I really started digging into it, and I was, working with all these major trainer names out there, and really trying to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I realized that I was not only working my dog, I was working myself. I wasn't building a
Okay.
business, I was building a community.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it came to marketing and it came to building what we were building,
Mm.
is when the epiphany came into is that I wasn't training a dog to sit down, come and stay. I mean, even back then, anybody can go to the library. They can go to YouTube now. You can go to
Yeah.
anywhere
Yeah.
and you can
Mm-hmm.
see how to train your dog how to sit. Like this
Yeah.
isn't rocket. So I started studying tons of stuff, in particular, truly psychology.
Mm.
And I started realizing that all the dog training is the same that would work with me. So I started fixing my PTSD with my dog using the
Wow.
same techniques that I work with my dog on me. And I
Mm.
started really putting things into consideration. Like, number one, dogs work for reward, but you have to control the reward. Now, most people think reward is a dog treat, but it's not. Reward is in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Mm.
So, for example, I don't like being punched in the face. I really like my face. I'm not saying it's the best looking face, but I do like my face, right? So that means if you said, "Hey, let's go to karate class or MMA and learn how to do jujitsu or, mixed martial arts or any of that kind of stuff," I'm not going to be appeased by this. Matter of fact, I'm a pretty big guy now. I really like pizza. So if you tell me you want to go for a run, exercise, go to the gym, those
Mm.
are all punishments to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But to somebody else, that could be a
Yeah.
reward,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So that means if you offer me a pizza, you probably got my attention. If you offer me exercise, you will lose my attention.
Mm. Mm.
So instead of me walking into a house saying, "This is my method, this is how I do it," I said, "Let me meet you and let me meet your dog. Let me
Yeah.
get to see what you and your dog are all about." Because
Mm.
people are attached to their dogs, right? And their dogs are literally mirror images of themselves.
Mm.
So the question is, what is the driving force? What is the want, right? Like, so for example, if I have a dog that wants to run out the door, what's the reward in this scenario?
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
going outside the door, which means
Mm.
controlling of the door is what my key essential to success would be, not
Mm.
demanding the dog to sit and wait. The dog
Definitely.
will sit and wait naturally if I control the door.
Mm.
Now, what's even crazier is you can do that to a human,
Yeah.
right? Have you ever gone to like the supermarket and the automatic doors don't
Uh,
automatically open really quick? What do?
uh,
You stand there until they open up fully,
yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
walk in. Yeah, that's controlling of the door, right? They didn't tell you to sit and wait. But you do it, right? Do you
Yeah.
ever go to the doctor's office and you check in and then they tell you to have a seat and then you stay until
Mm.
they call your name? They
Yeah.
didn't tell you to stay. They didn't say sit, stay. So when
Mm-hmm.
all these epiphanies started coming into play, and I started realizing this is going on in our everyday life, everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I go, man, I could use this to bridge the gap between people and their pets.
Mm.
And that's when it all really started to grow. And that's where we started having proper influences. Because instead of us just trying to beat down people in this marketing world of we use science based methods, we use science based.
Yeah.
What is your science based method? Who
Mm.
discovered it? And you ask these trainers who Clever Hans is, who Dr. Skinner is, who Dr. Pavlov is, and they don't actually know them. But
Yeah.
you're screaming science based balance training, reward training.
Yeah.
Well, really, what you're doing is you're just screaming at people at different levels on stuff
Mm.
that was passed to you because you just learned it, and that's you don't even realize is a marketing thing, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people, "Do you know who Clever Hans is?" And they're like, "No." I said, "But did you ever notice that when your friend or significant other grabs their car keys, you ask them where they're going?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the Clever Hans effect because they wouldn't grab their car keys if they're not leaving."
Mm.
Which means they're watching you, and it's called a poker
Mm.
face, right? That's why we
Mm.
cover our faces and all these things. So your
Yeah.
dog has 24 hours a day to study you. They study you when you're sleeping. They study you when you're awake. Well, you're
Yeah.
distracted with food, water,
Yeah.
how you're going to pay your bills, what your friends are doing on social media.
Mhm.
You're distracted by all this stuff. Your dog's sitting there taking notes on you,
Mm.
and your dog's modified their behavior to get you to work for them. So when people tell me, "Oh, I'm in charge of my dog," I'm like, "You're a liar. Your dog's got you whipped, right? They'll tell you how to open the door. They'll tell you when to feed them. They'll tell you when to
Yeah.
do all these."
Yeah.
Because most people never self-analyze to see their predictions, see where they are. And that's one thing I could say where I was really blessed was that I realized this. And then little that I try, I had rules, and this one you'll probably laugh the most at. I said that I would never hire anybody. I would never work with a person. I would never introduce more trainers. I never wanted to be a trainer that trained trainers. I never wanted to do any of those things, right?
Hmm.
And you wouldn't believe this, but I had people starting to volunteer to work for me because they wanted to learn these things that I was teaching, right? So
Hmm.
so they started
Hmm.
volunteering, and then
Yeah.
they started when they started to volunteer. When they started to do that, this is where it gets crazy. My business grew.
Hmm.
So because my business grew, I had no other choice but to what? Pay them. So I
Yeah.
had employees, right? So so now I have employees, right?
Hmm.
Meanwhile, I was like, all right, well, I'll never get a brick and mortar. I'll just train in public and in
Yeah.
people's houses. I'll never do that, right?
Hmm.
So then, we're based. I was based in Maryland at the time, and
Hmm.
weather there just gets really bad in the wintertime, and it's just you can't train. It's horrible. So I was
Hmm.
like, you know what? I'll go rent a place, right? So I worked a deal with a place where I was like, I never want a brick and mortar, but this is just a roof for those inclement weather days,
Yeah.
and I'm only going to use it when I need it, and that was the lease I had, right? Next thing I know, I'm there every day of the week, 7 days a week. And then I needed more staff. So we hired more staff, right? And then we're
Uh,
like, okay. So then it was like, well, this is where I'm at. I'm never going to do these things. And then it was, well, I'm never going to make an online program because I need people to work with me and I feel like I can't teach them otherwise.
yeah.
So we now have an online program because obviously, it was like, well, if I can give them homework online, it makes it easier,
Yeah.
right? So then they can go
That's how
back
it
to it.
kept going on. Yeah.
It just kept growing, and everyone's like, well, how'd you? That's how I did it. It's just, when you stick to the right things, what I feel is what
Mm.
was my
I guess your
methodological training.
foundation was the psychological thing that you were talking about, right? That was your
Absolutely.
foundation. And because of
And
that,
it's
it was growing. It was not the surface level stuff that every other dog owner were doing.
Yeah, I just stayed away from what everybody else does. We literally, my wife and kids always laugh is because we have a rule here, which is if everyone's going left, I go right. If everyone
Mm.
goes right, I go left.
Mm.
And they're like, why do you do that? I said, well, if everybody's copying everybody, that means there's something wrong,
Yeah.
right? They're
Definitely.
going to what we like to
Yeah.
call the topical point, right? If everyone's doing that, that means it's probably not going to be working. So the
Yeah.
few that are going to be successful, right? Like I want to become a YouTuber and become really successful. Well, there's only about 5 people that are truly successful on YouTube,
Mm.
truly successful, right? Well, let's face it, like you get a podcast going like we are on right now, and you're going to be
Mm.
successful, but you're not going to be Joe Rogan successful,
Yeah, definitely.
right? Because well, Joe Rogan knows people. Well, he got a podcast and he's really good at it. If I do that, yeah. But Joe Rogan was also a stand-up comedian. He was a game
Mhm.
show host. He was a
There's this
UFC
whole
host.
foundation before somebody really explodes in a scene, right?
Yeah,
So it's not like,
exactly.
yeah. Mm.
So when we look at dog training, you can't just copy another dog trainer's thing. You have to go down to the foundation.
Mm.
And what is the foundation of training? The foundation of training is the psychology and
Psychology.
the emotions that are involved in the training of this, right? So when you learn those things, especially what I'm teaching and how we teach it, it
Mm.
builds the relationship, which builds the community, which then over time compounds into the success I've had. And I always tell people it's not me, it's everybody else. If it's
Mm.
wrong, it's my fault. If it's successful, it's everybody else's. We grew because the person that volunteered continued the message. Then they became an employee. When
Mm.
we had so many employees and we had so many clients, I had to get a building.
Mm.
So instead of me trying to say, I want to be this guy that has 100 locations and all of these other things,
Mm.
I only focus on helping the one person that's directly in front of me.
Yeah.
That person then helps the next person. It helps the next person, helps the next
Mm.
person. And
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, you have a
Mm-hmm.
true culture of helping and bridging the gap between one and another.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's that relationship point that we focus in on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we call our motto here is effective dog training made fun and easy, because when you really have the ability to take that time into yourself, it does become effective and it becomes easy,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing, and I'll tell you this all the time. When you have a strong relationship with your pet, they never disobey you. I've never told my dogs no, and I don't tell my kids no because I don't have to, right?
Mm.
We control the value and they earn everything. And when they earn it, they truly value it, and which also means they don't want to disrupt it.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
If my dog's sitting to earn what they want to earn or behaving, they look at me as their true value, right? I'm the one that controls everything they love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means I never have to correct my dog because my dog's always looking at me for the cue, right?
Mm.
If my dog's looking elsewhere because the fun is elsewhere, then I've messed up.
Yeah.
then I become a correction and not a reward,
Yeah.
right? It's a weird thing to look at it, but if your dog is paying attention to you, then they can't be messing up,
Yeah.
right? They can't bark at the dog across the street if they're looking at you. They can't run away to the neighbor because they're looking at you. They can't do anything wrong if they're looking at you.
Yeah.
But it's not about holding a treat to your forehead to teach them that, because
Mm.
that treat, right, is temporary. That means
Yeah.
after they eat the treat, then they can go look at the neighbor, right? But if
Mm.
I'm the main source of love and affection and we start the relationship there, then why would
Mm.
you look anywhere else?
Definitely. Definitely.
And that goes even business and so on and so forth. But yeah,
Mm.
sorry, I like I told you, I
No, no,
go
no. No, that's amazing. I mean, I just love having this conversation. And like what when we were starting out, like what were some of the first challenges you faced? Like how did you go and navigate them?
So the first challenge I ever faced in this was literally understanding that defining the industry was going to be the hardest thing that I had to do.
Hmm.
So if everybody is doing something, this is the proven level of success in dog training. If you look at dog trainers in the industry, they all pretty much do the same thing: free
Hmm.
evaluations, then they
Hmm.
sell you a program, and then they blame you for the dog not listening. Hey, that's what they all do. So like it, love it, or hate it, but they all do private lessons, board and trains,
Hmm.
group lessons, right, and behavior modification.
Hmm.
So that means they went to Vistaprint, they went online, they said, "Here's a dog training template." They changed their name, they ordered it.
Hmm.
Now, how was I going to separate myself from them? How was I going to show the world that I was different?
Yeah.
And I had to focus down on one, which was that one client that I had. And that was all I ever focused on, was one client. I never looked at the many. I didn't care about the many. I don't care about the rest. I only care about the one in front of me.
Hmm.
And emotionally, it's the hardest thing to do, because you turn on Facebook as a dog trainer, you see all your competition. You see all the other dog trainers, right? You go
Yeah.
on to Instagram, you see all the other dog trainers. You
Hmm.
go on to YouTube, you see all the other dog trainers. You never see yourself. And you never know what people are saying about you, and you never know what your reputation is. And the truth be told is, where I feel I am right now is the same guy back in 2007 that was sitting in his basement wondering how somebody's even going to want to call me to let me help them with their dog. And
Wow.
I'm not that guy anymore, but
Hmm.
I still feel that I am that guy, because I only care about the one client that's standing in front of me still. I've never changed that.
Hmm.
So I still actually will tell you, I still deal with that struggle of knowing where I am and what I've done,
Hmm.
because in my mind, I'm still that guy that was back then, that was
Hmm.
being beaten down and competed with. And you know, the I'm sure you've heard the old saying, if you put three dog trainers in a room, the only thing two of them agree on is the third one's an idiot, right? So
Yeah.
you know, so you know, you know that it's a very difficult
Yeah.
industry, right?
Mm.
Even for us, right? Because how many trainers want to give you the true respect without taking money? You know, so hey, if you want me to train you to be a trainer, pay me, right?
Yeah.
But then they still well, they only know stuff because they paid me, right? Like it's one of those things. So it's the true struggle of knowing, do I know it, do I not know it,
Mm.
and putting my ego, more importantly, away. You
Mm.
know, I can easily take everything that I've accomplished and
Mm.
build myself this ego of
Yeah.
I'm a somebody.
Mm.
And that would probably be the two bigger struggles, right? One is competing in an industry that is full of a lot of great trainers and
Yeah.
seeing that you can do it, right? And the second one is reminding, even if you do make it into something, that you still have to humble yourself back down to nothing in order to
Mm.
keep learning
Keep
and keep
going. Yeah.
growing.
Mm.
Because the second your ego gets in the way,
Yep.
you've stopped and now someone's going to pass you.
Mm.
And I tell everybody that comes to work in my company is it's my responsibility to give you everything I have so we can compete against each other to be better.
Wow.
Right. So I'm going to teach them how to become successful in business, how to train dogs, how to market, how to work, build relationships. Because why? If they are equal to me, that means I have to work harder to go out and win again, right? And I'm competitive.
Wow.
So I have to I'm going to go out there and work harder. I'm going to go out there and do what I need to do, and I'm going to go out there and make bigger impacts and learn and challenge myself.
Mm.
And I'm the best part about it is that the people that come to work for me, I'm not going to hold back anything. I want you to compete with me.
Mm.
It's the only way we're going to grow. It's the only way. And that was taught to me by those volunteers. When those volunteers that came in and never left, and they still haven't left, they wound up becoming their own location
Wow.
owners and making impacts. They are still a part of the company. They still
Wow.
believe in what we're
And
doing.
that is back
And
in 2007.
They joined in 2011, 2012 was when they started
Mhm.
coming in.
Mhm.
And then I wrote my first book in 2014 called Puppy Training Made Fun and Easy.
Wow.
And so it was like, and again, I'm dyslexic. Reading is not my thing, right? And I wrote a book. So again, challenges, right? You
Mm.
take it on instead of run away from it.
Mm.
And again, how can you expect a dog to change if you're asking them to face a challenge and not asking it? And that's really what it came down to. Like Bruno made me change my life because of those factors. He showed me the different things that work. He showed me that the relationship between me and him was important, and it was taking notes. To tell you my secret
Mm.
is that I journaled everything I did.
Wow.
So what I did was every time I worked my dog, I journaled everything I did. I journaled to the point of like where my hair was, if I had a beard, didn't have a beard, did I shave that day? Yeah, I'm not even kidding you. I put the weather into it,
Wow.
everything you can think into it, because it was like, well, what was a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, did the dog have a different reaction because it was raining out or muddy out or this out or that out versus this
Wow.
versus that, right? And then
Uh-huh.
you go back at the end of the month, and I would look back to try to figure out where things were similar. Like when we had success moments, what
Uh-huh.
was similar, right?
Uh-huh.
Was it the shirt I wore, or was it this, or was it
Uh-huh.
that, and all these things. And then it was suddenly as time went on, and I started studying psychology and getting into
Uh-huh.
the psychology part
Uh-huh.
of it, which these experiments have already been done.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh my gosh, look at these coincidences that occurred. And then you're like, that's
Wow.
not a coincidence, it's how
Mhm.
it works.
Mhm.
Like it's
And
it's
also
not a coincidence.
only some person who is truly passionate about something or truly obsessed about something can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't expect anybody else to do it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't, like if someone's like, well, how, is that what I have to do? No, you don't have to do it. It was a little bit of a waste, but there was a level of
Yeah.
this is who I am and what I do. I break
Mm,
things down to the simplest minutia, and I
mm,
want to know how it
mm,
works, right?
mm.
And then
So
I
is it like
learned all.
specifically in the dog training stuff, or is like in other part of your life too? Do you get like obsessed with something really quickly?
I do it all for everything. There's nothing, no exceptions. Like if
Yeah.
you're going to teach me how to like ride a bike, I'm going to break it down. Like I got to know how to
Wow.
maintain the bike to ride the bike. I don't want to just like, kick the pedals and look at moves. Like no, I need to know
That's
every little bit of it. Maybe I have a something wrong with my head or whatever that makes me that way. I don't know, but it's one of those things where I started reading a book called The Compound Effect
Yeah.
years and years and years ago. I highly
Mm-hmm.
recommend this book called The Compound
Mm-hmm.
Effect from Darren Hardy, who
Mm-hmm.
wound up becoming my business mentor, and now I've even gotten to meet him multiple occasions and become an impact even in his community.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it shows you that when you take certain information, right? Like I took his stuff to another level to where he invited me into his home, right? Like that's here's a guy who wrote a book, very successful man. Now I'm in San Diego meeting a guy, right? And it goes to show you that when you break things down to its simplest minutia, you can really find out how it ticks and how it works and why it works. Do you need to do that to become a successful dog trainer? No. There is a shortcut, and that shortcut's way better than what I did. And
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you the shortcut's very simple. You
Mm-hmm.
find people like me, and then you ask them to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
So then that way they're just going to tell you the fastest way to it
Yeah.
instead of the longest way to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't need to
Mm. But
go
that
create.
doesn't have the unique story to it. That doesn't have a unique foundation to it, right?
Correct. So like what you said, it doesn't have the unique story because they came and learned, right?
Mm.
But they're picking up where I left off. And that means their job is to have a bigger, better impact than I could even have in. Because when you think of the time that it took to get
Yeah. 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 That's
me
a,
from here to there, and
mm,
they're picking up from where I left off and growing it further, like
mm,
I know sooner or later I'm not going to be where I am, and someone's going to take my role. And they might not have the unique story. They're going to have their story. This is my story. But
mm.
their story is going to be unique too because every single person on this earth is special.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all different,
Mm,
right? And the thing is that one of the hardest things that people realize, just like in when you're working with dogs, even though we have very similarities, we're all uniquely different, and we need to share that with the world, which makes everybody unique. Even the people that trained with me, right? Like the volunteers that started in this company, then wound up owning their own locations, right? Their story starts off with, I was so intrigued with this guy that I kept going back, right? So
mm,
where they started prior to that is their story, and then they learned from me. But because of them, we grew. So they forced change. They forced a growth. They forced that. So their story is just as unique, if not even more
Yeah.
inspiring than mine. Because if it wasn't for
Mm,
them,
mm,
I'm nothing,
definitely.
right?
Mm,
And if it wasn't for the one next to them and the one after them, and that even goes to the people that hurt you. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have changed, right?
yeah.
Like if, no pain compliance, right? So
Definitely, definitely.
yeah.
And you also incorporate scientific principles like operant and classical conditioning, right? In your methods.
Um,
Can you explain how these principles come into play when solving problems behavior?
Yeah, I truly believe that when you go into training, you really do actually have to know the experiments and where they came from and who wrote them, right? So Dr. Skinner, Dr. Pavlov,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to know them in that verbatim because when you're teaching them to people, they can learn how to catch themselves in it, right? So with operant conditioning, the power of negative and positive, right? Classical conditioning, the repeated behavior, creating habits. These are really important factors, and I know I just broke them down to the simplest point
Yeah.
of understanding them, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people always talk about, the clicker training and they call it marker and they have all these unique things from it. But what is that? Well, that's classical conditioning, right? And that takes time. In order for classical conditioning to work, it takes time to embed what the um like what the bell is going to be or the clicker is going to be. What is the value you're creating? And if you don't know the experiments, you tend to cut the corner. And if you cut the corner, it doesn't work. And if you don't explain it to your customer, right, the client, then they're not going to keep doing it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
Mm.
that's where understanding these experiments and where they came from and their impact that they had is vital to the success of your training program and with your client, right?
Mm.
I'll even tell you this, like it sort of goes with that, but when I was first getting into these things, people were like, well, we don't train dogs, we train people, and they train their dogs. It's like, no, we're dog trainers. That's our title, is to train the dog. My job is to train your dog, and then my job is also to teach you how to maintain what trained your dog.
Yeah. Mm.
That's why I'm called a dog trainer. When
Mm.
dog trainers say that no, we train people, then they're not dog trainers, they're teachers.
Yeah.
And that means you're training your competition, you're not training your client.
Mm.
You have to train the dog. That's your expertise. You know how to get the dog there the fastest. Their job and the way you need to break it down is for them to maintain it. And if you know operant and if you know classical, then you understand that you're not just doing one thing, you're doing two in every one of your sessions. And if you're
Mm.
doing those two things properly, then you will have extreme success with your client. And I'll tell you, here's what you'll laugh at this one. You ready? You know where this epiphany came from?
Yeah.
SeaWorld. I
Okay.
paid like I think it was like 50 or $60 or whatever, and I became a dolphin trainer for the day. And
Okay.
then I realized that not one time did I train that dolphin. That dolphin was fully trained way before that guy blew the whistle and let me, pet the dolphin or give a hand signal.
Uh,
That dolphin knew everything, right?
uh,
But and again, this goes back to my like weirdness with the whole journaling, right?
yeah.
When I started looking at all the other people in line doing the same thing I'm about to do, and I realized that the trainer tells the customer, right, me, move your hand like this, and then the dolphin goes. Who trained the dolphin? They did.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what they trained the dolphin to
Yeah.
respond to, right? See how weird that is?
Yeah.
So when I went home that day after SeaWorld that day, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong in my program? And I revamped the entire Blue Line K-9 training program to match
Okay.
that
Mm.
because I was like, I realized where we were going wrong and where we were becoming a part of the industry. I was
Mm.
like, I'm not going to do that. And then another time we were sitting there and we were teaching our puppy class, and one of our trainers took over the class, and I got to observe it. And I was observing them, writing all my notes. The next week came and I changed the entire program
Mm.
because I was like, I saw everything that was going wrong, everything that we were
Mm.
missing, everything that we were doing.
Mm.
And sometimes it's an ego boost, right? It's an ego hurt when you start to
Yeah.
go, I thought I was doing this thing right, but now I
Yeah.
figured
Yeah.
out something even better. I
Definitely.
figured out a way to
Definitely.
make it,
Mm.
you know. A lot of trainers do that. I know some do. I've seen other trainers do these things, right? And some of us get stuck in our ways. And I'm not saying that I'm not a victim to it, right? Like I said, I had to go to a dolphin show to realize that I was missing something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's great. It's these epiphanies, and those
Mm.
epiphanies I think lead people to success in
Yeah.
every which way.
Mm.
And
Definitely.
again, it goes back into operating classical conditioning because That dolphin knew the person raises their hand, they go do a jump. If they do a swirly, then they go do this, right? Which is
Mm,
classical conditioning. You know,
mm,
that dolphin knows what it's doing every day.
mm.
They know the routine. They know everything. Most likely, even if you didn't raise your hand, the dolphin would probably go do the trick and get the fish, right?
Yeah.
The dolphin knows, right? So
Yeah.
it's one of
Yeah.
those factors.
Definitely. And you also offer several different training programs like the Gold, Platinum, and Camp Blue. So,
Yeah.
so what's the core difference between these, and like what would you say make each one special?
Yeah. So what is the big difference? Great question. One is, so, gold is normally your private one-on-one lessons.
Okay.
And we call it gold because one of my biggest things is that I don't want to just inspire people just to train their dog, right? It's also about training the people to grow and build themselves, right? Like I said about me getting out of PTSD using this dog training stuff. So we call it gold, platinum, and
Mm,
Camp Blue Line Canine. And there's a few reasons. The first one would be is this: gold is equivalent to anybody's private one-on-one training, right? So you're a gold medalist because you took the step to hire a professional to help you build the relationship between you and your dog. So you
mhm,
receive gold, right?
mhm,
And how that works is like any other dog training program. It's one-on-one lessons where you meet with the trainer either in a private, public place,
mhm,
their home,
mhm.
whatever, and you're doing your lessons that way, which puts more on the owner of the dog, right? But they're still a gold medalist because they took that time. Now the platinum program is where we're going to do a lot of the repetition for the client, right? And then the client gets the maintenance program, right? So we're going to take a lot of that repetition. So we're going to do it a little bit on their behalf, right? So how we do it in particularly is we get the dog for 1 day a week for 7 weeks.
Okay.
So that way the owners have 6 days to practice with their dog. It's literally the
Mhm,
purpose behind it. So the
mhm,
idea is they drop the dog off to our facility. We train the dog all day. We bring the dog out on field trips. We bring the dog everywhere the client would do, but we do it all so they're at work. And then when they come to pick up the dog, we give them the one-on-one lesson, same
okay.
as the gold. They would still going to get the one-on-one lesson with us, but now the dog's maintenance is there, right? So the dog's up to par because we got rid of the owner, trained the dog, got the dog doing everything we want. So when the owner shows up for that hour, you're only training the owner on what they need to maintain for the dog.
Mhm, mhm,
So then from there,
mhm,
that's going to go out, right? And they're going to
mhm,
have 6 days to practice. So when they come back for their next lesson, they can
mhm,
tell us what was good and what was bad,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
Then you have Camp
Like,
Blue
what are
Line.
the most common challenges like the dog face after training and
So with the Platinum program, we don't actually come across a whole lot of problems,
Mhm,
right? Because the maintenance is a lot easier when we embedded the induction, right? Because you really got to look at your problems of in home, right? Which is the most likely, and I guarantee you, I don't know how many dog trainers you've interviewed, but I'm sure a lot by now, right? Is this one? You go out, you do a program where you go to the person's house and you come outside, you grab their dog and you go in their backyard or their front yard or you meet them at a park, right? That owner is now stressed out because they just got home from work. They're in their work clothes. Their kids are annoying them. They can't wait to cook dinner. You're messing up their life at this moment in time, their normal routines, right? So you're messing up their classical conditioning. You see what I'm saying? And
yeah.
you're changing that, and they're only looking at you like leaving, like just get the dog to sit so we can leave. Thanks. Good. Right. Uh-huh. All right, good. Bye. When's our next lesson? Next week, Monday. Got it. All right. See you later. Right. Do you
Mm.
really think that that owner really took any information that you gave? Do you really think the dog took? No, the dog's sitting there going like, I'll behave for that guy while he's here because once he leaves, I can go back to peeing on the rug and eating the carpet.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
that's just the way they're going to do it. Right. So that's why a lot of people, well, the owner didn't listen to me. Well, the owner wasn't mentally ready for you.
Mm.
And in that hour-long session, were you truly dedicated to the owner? And the answer to that is no. You were dedicated to teaching the dog slash
Dog.
owner. You
Yeah.
were split. Then you're also worried about collecting payment, filling out the next lesson,
Yeah.
scheduling different things. So in that 1 hour, even if you stayed for two, right? Your mind was split. You were thinking about where you got to go next, what you need to do. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they going to give me a good review or a bad review? Did they get the QR code for my Google review? Right?
Mm.
You're thinking of everything but what they really needed. You didn't really care about their problems. You're teaching them heel. And meanwhile,
Yeah.
that dog owner's not going to walk their dog in a sport heel. They just didn't want the dog to run away or chase the squirrel up the tree, right? Like those things take time, right? So that's your
Mm.
problem with gold. You're never really building the true information. With the platinum, we're able to train the dog and we're able to listen to the problems and recreate them as best we can, right? So for example, we have a dog that comes and they say, well, Mike, we go on mom and pa trail or trails in the park every
Mm.
weekend. We love doing that. Okay. So we could take the dog to the trail and see what the dog does. We could take the dog directly to the trail that the owner is on.
Mm.
And then we could work the dog and then teach the owner what they need to do in their walking trail. So I could truly customize it to their needs
Mm.
in this situation, which then solves the problem. Because, like I said, like what you allow your dog to do and what somebody else allows their dog to do are completely different. So you
Yeah.
can't create a cookie cutting
Yeah.
dog
Yeah. Yeah.
training program. You have to
Mm.
fit the client's need, right? Like I said earlier, I'm not going hiking, bro. Like I'm not doing it. Somebody's like, "You want to go for a 10-mile hike?" No, no, but I'll eat a loaf of bread. Like you see what I'm saying? You see what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Mm.
so that means there's a good chance that my dog isn't going to be a mountain climber, right? He's not going to go hiking. He's not going to wear that, right? But if my client says that I need my dog to uh, run next to me on a bicycle, right? Well, then I'm going to go get a bicycle and I'm going to train that dog to run next to me on a bicycle
Wow.
because that's what my client wants me to do and that's what my client needs. So why
Mm.
am I trying to stress my client out when I could take care of the stress because I'm the dog trainer? I'm going to focus my time on the dog. And then I'm going to focus my next time on training the owner of the dog, right? The client
Mm. Mm.
on how to maintain what I put into the dog.
Mm.
I don't need to eliminate or do all those other things, right? Like, why
Mm.
am I trying to teach them to teach down? It doesn't make sense.
Mm.
What you're doing there, right? You have to teach how to be successful.
Yeah.
And then Camp Blue Line K-9 is our board and train program. So we
Mm.
we bring the dogs in. We treat it more like a summer camp where the dogs are living life in a whole other world. It's not just in a crate and out of a crate to do a behavior.
Mhm.
We want them to, it's funny, but we'll have them do arts and crafts stuff. We'll have them do fun stuff where we'll, put paint on a canvas and put it in a plastic bag and have the dog like, with peanut butter lick the bag so they get to play artwork. And so while they're learning, they're still having fun, right?
Yeah.
And and then they get to go home with that with their dog owner, right? So they, here, mom, here's a painting from Bruno, right? Or whatever it
Mm.
is. He did this while he was here and he trained and he learned and he had more fun. And the reason why we went with that thing was to give the training staff a mental break and realize it's not just about left, right, sit down, up,
Yeah.
place, right?
Mm.
It's to give them some fun and that keeps them mentally active with learning and getting to know the dog
Mm.
because you're stressing out a dog in a board and train. You've taken them out of their home environment and you
Yeah.
got to keep them safe. So you have to keep them in some sort of crate or kennel, right? So you change that normal environment. Well, the thing is that when you're training an animal in that, what we learned from Clever Hans, operant conditioning, classical conditioning, right, is that when the dog goes home, it's going home to that home environment where none of this kennel life exists.
Yeah. Mm.
So that means you have to try to bridge that gap between you and the owner.
Mm.
Well, when you're bridging that gap, you have to try to make it fun and where it's not just orderly because when that dog goes home, that's not what their life is going to be. Their life isn't going to be in a box, come out, do a couple commands, and go back to a box. They're going to be sitting on the couch. They're going to be running around the living room. They're going to be peeing in the yard. They're going to be doing those things.
Yeah.
So you have to try to recreate that life for that dog. So the dog's habits go home with them.
Yeah.
And if you just make it into this orderly, yeah, the dog looks great for the pickup lesson, but then 3 weeks later, the dog's right back to its old behavior,
Yeah. Mm.
right? We don't want that. We
Mm.
want long term results. So we have to, excuse me, we have to train for that. We have to figure out those problems and utilizing the proven scientific techniques is like, hey,
Mhm.
me and my journal, I walk into people's houses and you can see the differences,
Mhm.
right? Like, hey, if I go into this type of person's house, this is their culture. That means I have to train for that culture.
Mm.
I know I don't look it, but I'm Hispanic, right? So I have a lot of Puerto Rican. My dad's Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico. I have a lot of Puerto Rican culture in me, which means I have a lot of habits from that's Puerto Rican.
Mhm.
That means when I'm doing things or how the way I talk or walk or whatever is going to be with that culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, right? So if you don't embrace that as a trainer from the client, right,
Mhm.
then you're wrong. So if you don't know the culture, get to know the culture. Ask them, talk to them. Hey,
Mm.
what are the things that you like? What are the types of dog treats that you use so we don't upset their stomach? What are the types of music that you listen to so that way we can make sure the dog's around it, used to it. They're
No.
not shocked by it, right? And
Mm.
that's the big thing. I guess it goes into being non-judgmental but understanding and open,
Mm. Definitely.
right? You have to absorb everything from every walk and talk,
Mm-hmm.
and every culture that's out there, so you can bring it into the training to give the most success for that dog.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Definitely.
think I talked about the difference programs now. Now that I'm thinking back to what I just told you, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in talking more about the dog that have anxiety and aggression issues, so like how do you guys handle those specific dogs?
Yeah. So the first thing we have to look at would be is like, all right, what could be medically wrong with the dog before I go into training, right?
Okay.
So anxiety and aggression a
Hmm.
lot of times can be caused by discomfort in the body. So I've literally dealt with dogs that are so aggressive, right, that you would even get in a room and they just want to kill you, right?
Oh,
And then I would change their diet and that aggression went away. And you don't know dog trainer ever really like, and I'm saying that wrong. It's not true, but a good majority of the time, nobody ever suggests changing the diet first.
hmm. So have you like
Before
studied
you sign
for
up a
that
dog,
to specifically the dieting and the bee health as
yep.
in?
Because the first thing before let's say we do an evaluation, right? And we see
Hmm.
that the dog is suffering from some sort of high level of anxiety or high levels of aggression.
Hmm.
Before I would train a program, start a program, they are
Hmm.
required to change the diet for a minimum of 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And the reason why is because a diet could be causing issues. And I mean this wholeheartedly is if you, again, take yourself, for example, how do you act when you have an upset stomach?
Hmm.
Yeah, you act mean. You're aggressive. You're angry. If somebody says, "How do you feel?" Shut up! I don't feel good. Don't touch me. Right? Well, imagine if you have an upset stomach and you can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Imagine you're having allergies, right? You don't feel good. You can't tell anybody. You're
Yeah.
going to come off aggressive. How many people say, "What are you mad about?" You're like, "Nothing. I don't feel good." How many times has that phrase been said to you?
Yeah.
But you never consider that for your animal. Well, they're on a
Definitely.
good diet. Well, that good diet's a commercial,
Hmm.
right? You don't know what a good diet for your dog is because TV is not going to tell you. TV is not telling you the truth. They're giving you a commercial to sell a product. So their stomach is different than my stomach. Like I said before, I like pizza and spicy foods.
Hmm.
Uh, Other people can't eat that kind of stuff. It upsets their stomach. So if I gave them a spicy diet and said, "Well, the commercial is really good food," they're going to be upset about it, right?
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
causing them to have diarrhea, blowouts, allergies,
Yeah.
you don't know, right?
Hmm.
So you change the diet and you see what happens. If you start to see a change in their behavior, you immediately know this is not true aggression. This is a
Hmm.
dietary issue. And you
Hmm.
work from there. And then once you have that fixed and worked on, then you go to the next level, the next level, and the next level. But those are your steps because why put them in a training program and try to modify their behavior or train the behavior out of them that's being caused by something else that
Yeah.
is unseen, unnoticed?
Hmm.
I mean, there are dogs that have licked their paws that have created excessive compulsive disorder where they lick the paws raw, right?
Yeah.
OCD. And
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
find out they had a yeast infection. And then what happens
Hmm.
by the time you realize they had a yeast infection on their foot, right?
Hmm.
They've now created a behavior. And
Yeah.
it's why they're licking their paws raw. So now before you change the behavior, you have to
Hmm.
stop the yeast infection
Yeah.
because now you're punishing the dog for trying to fix themselves.
Hmm.
You see how that works? Like you got to fix
Hmm.
the underlying issue. And the worst
Yep.
part about it is
Yep.
like, well, my vet said, listen, no offense to veterinarians or anybody, but it's still a business.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if and sometimes tests cost money that they know their customers aren't going to pay for
Hmm.
because dog insurance and things like that don't necessarily cover all that kind of stuff, and most people don't have pet insurance. So when
Yeah.
you're thinking about that kind of stuff, sometimes it's easier just to experiment with a quick change of food and see where
Hmm.
the behavior changes or what happens, because the foods themselves, you got to think like there was a couple of brands that I was very aware of back in the day that were like very holistic and locally made, and then
Hmm.
they got really really popular and bought out by Procter and Gamble. Do you really think that a huge company like Procter and Gamble is going to keep that home style cooking? No, they're
Yeah.
mass production. There's going to
Hmm.
be some sort of change. But
Definitely.
and it's not a dig on them. It's not saying that that food's bad, but it happens. There's food recalls. There's things that occur. So sometimes just simply trying something, right? And a lot of times what I normally suggest during those 2 weeks is a raw-ish diet.
Hmm.
Um, I don't necessarily tell people to go to the supermarket buy raw food, but there is a lot of raw options that are out there now that I would highly recommend. So that way they could try it out. So it gets it to its purest point for the animal. And if the behavior changes during that timeline, then we know it's the food, and then we can adjust with food and go from there. There's no reason for a true training program,
Wow.
right?
Hmm.
Then if If it's not, or we did solve that problem, but they're still aggressive, then we know it's a behavior problem. We need to go into training, right? Then we know. So now it's
Mm.
like, all right, we're both making the proper investment into what is best for the family and their dog.
Mhm, mhm. And do you think that other dog owners, dog trainers, like are doing this, what you are doing, like suggesting them diets and everything?
No, I know for a fact they're not all doing
Mm.
it.
Wow.
And that I believe is a training of trainers. So most dog trainers are started their businesses after being an apprentice to another trainer and are looking to supplement money or they enjoy other dogs, right? So that
Mm.
means you've learned habits that are just passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation.
Mm.
And then they'll, and that's why I believe it. I call it the marketing syndrome, right? Where they just spew out words because they just heard them their entire life, right? So
Yeah.
if you're a sport dog trainer, then you believe sport dog. If you're a working dog trainer, you're working dog. If you're a military dog trainer, then how many are really going to contradict something, right? And what it's easier to blame somebody else than it is to blame yourself, right?
Yeah.
So my methods of doing stuff is the first thing is saying I was wrong, right? So when I learned this stuff from other trainers, I had to admit that I was learning something, and if I continue it, I'm wrong, and I
Mm.
was going to change that. And that's what the number one thing for me is that my dog saved my life. If my dog Bruno didn't come into my life and help me learn the things that I've learned, right? And he was a hell of a dog because he was the one that motivated and let me experiment with every method and thought I had, right? And he didn't, and he was a great dog, right? Now my thing is that if it wasn't for him, what would
Mm.
my PTSD have done to me? Where would I be? Would I still have all my anger issues? Would I still have a successful company? Would my relationship with my wife and kids be where it is? No, it's because of that dog
Mm.
that I was able to do all these things and better myself, better my wife, better my kids, better my life, better others. My number one passion is to help other people achieve the same with their pets,
Yeah.
even in their businesses. We've now bridged into I do business consulting now because
Wow.
it's not just about the pets. It's about the
Mm.
psychology. It's about the relationships. It's about seeing that every single person, including their animal, they have the power of success inside them. They have the power of being happy inside of them. And sometimes it's just been the pass down of information from generation to generation that
Mm.
closets us, that puts us behind a door, that creates the depressions and the unknown.
Mm.
Would I love to revolutionize our industry? Yes, and it's my passion, and that's why I focus all my energy on the one in front of me and not the millions behind me because I can't be truly successful, right? So it's about building a community one at a time and letting them build it out and build it out and build it out. If I try to go to the masses, I'll be shut down in a heartbeat because I won't be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
And the
Mm.
downside is in the masses, like your question was, is do other dog trainers do it? And it's no, because the masses say go for the money, go for the marketing, go for the you need the next client, keep selling, keep selling, keep selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be prepared to lose to win.
Yeah.
And I'll say there's no such thing as a bad or uneducated dog trainer
Mm-hmm.
because they have information that works. It always worked, but it comes at roadblocks, right? There's no bad information. There shouldn't be positive versus negative or balanced dog trainers. There shouldn't be. Positive reinforcement education works really, really good. Balanced
Mm.
dog training works really, really good. But we created a riff in our own industry that instead of sitting there saying, "Hey, this works good," but it does come with a roadblock. When you hit that roadblock, it should go to somebody else that's ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
But instead, we go, "Well, no, that dog trainer's an idiot."
Mm.
Why? Why is he an idiot? Because he knows something different than you? Know your limitations. I even come across limitations. If you
Yeah.
called me up right now and said, Mike, I want to do service training to work with blind people,
Mm.
not my ballpark. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to refer you to somebody that does do those things.
Mm.
Oh,
Mm.
Mike, I want to do a therapy dog. I don't do therapy dog.
Mm.
I'm here to build a relationship between you and your dog. Those are specialty trainings that I
Yeah.
can refer out to other people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, Mike, I
Mm-hmm.
want to do bike joring with my dog. I'm going to refer you to a different trainer. And methods are going to change because of the goal or what you're trying to
Mm.
accomplish. But
Mm-hmm.
most dog trainers are not going to have that relationship or want the relationship with other trainers because they look at them as competition for sales. And that mentality also goes into the fact that most dog trainers never learn business. They never learn how to budget. They never learn how to do things. Most of them typically will make their decisions, which you'll laugh at this one. They'll say, well, I could pay for this with just one more dog training session, or I can get one more client and I'll pay for this.
Mm.
That's not how business works.
Business
That's not
level.
how
Yeah.
that's not how business
That's
works,
not a
right?
business. That's just a side hustle.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's how they think.
Mm.
That's their thought process is, right? It's like, well, I could pay for this marketing company with just one extra dog client a month. Well, then you're not paying for that marketing, right? You're like, Then you become desperate. Then you become this. Then you become that. And that's what the emotions take over and you feel like you're drowning. And
Mm,
I think when dog trainers take that breath and they could find somebody like myself or other dog trainers that they like and they feel and they can go and do an apprenticeship under them and learn these techniques to jumpstart their careers,
mm,
they'll be shocked to realize how much of an impact they truly can make with building people's relationship with them and their dogs. And we could fix more dogs and we can prevent dogs from being put down or put in rescues. Because when most of the time when you see these dogs, the humane societies or rescues, they'll say, well, they're untrained. Actually, the dogs are trained. What
mm,
happened was they just didn't create the relationship with the owner. And that's why the owner sort of had to give them up and say they weren't trainable
mm.
because the training was there. It just wasn't the training that matched the owner.
Yeah,
The relationship was never formed, right? I'm a United States Marine. If I would have went to any other branch of service, I don't know if I would have had the mental success and capabilities as I do, right? Because the Marine Corps is not for everybody, but it was for me.
yeah,
The Army could be for some people, and the Army and the Marine Corps are not the same. The Army and the Coast Guard are not the same. You see what I mean? Like there's multiple branches of service, which also means different training.
yeah, yeah,
And just because you went into the military, it's not the same. They're all different, but it doesn't mean that they're not bad or one's bad, one's
yeah,
good. It's just
yeah.
they're
Hmm.
different. And
Different.
if
Yeah.
you're like, hey, I wanted to be a Marine where I get this different mentality and different workforce, then you wouldn't have lasted anywhere else. And vice versa, right? If you went to the Army and you're really happy, you might not have lasted in the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, or the Air Force or something like that, right? They're just different. It doesn't mean they're wrong. Doesn't mean there's factors. It just means they're different.
Mm,
And if, the craziest thing is when you look at, let's say, the U.S. military, what makes the U.S. military so strong is that we have different branches of service that fit different types of people. And
okay.
when we go to defend America in anything, right, or even
Mm,
help other countries with anything, you take all these different services and you put them together and they work together.
mm,
They don't compete in that sense. They compete
mm.
friendly, but they don't compete when they go to war, right? They're
Yeah,
all working for the same common goal. So
yeah,
you have the training that matches, and that's I would personally love to see that in our industry where dog groomers, dog trainers, we all start to get along and understand that we all have the same goal, which is to
yeah,
build relationships between people and their
yeah.
dogs.
Mm.
Hey, maybe before I die that'll happen. Maybe. I'm trying to get it out there,
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah,
Maybe with your help with the podcast, we'll win enough people and maybe we'll make an impact. People can reach out to me. We can see how we can
yeah.
help more people.
Definitely. And as you expanded, you built a team of trainers who share your passion for dog training. So, like, what qualities do you look for in a new trainer when you are adding them to your team?
Yeah, so I always ask one question. So when you have a few different options of working with me. One is you can come here and learn under me as an apprentice or do a boot camp where you want to become a certified trainer through us.
Mm, mm,
Um, so we do have that as an option where you come out, you would stay at a hotel near my facility and you would train
mm,
and we teach all this thing and you can go back on your own, right? And not
mhm.
you just learn my way of doing stuff.
Yeah.
In order to be with my company, you have to answer a question, and it's a weird question, but I'm going to tell you what it is. The question is very simple. I ask you, it's 5 years from today. This is what you need
Mm,
to picture. It's 5 years from today, and you have everything you want. What
mm.
does that look like? That's the question. What does that look like?
Okay.
And how they answer that question would determine if I can be a part of that journey with them or I can't.
Mm,
Because instead of me interviewing them and seeing what they bring to my company,
mm.
I'm trying to find out if my company is good for them.
Okay. Mm.
Unlike any other company, when they they
Yeah.
interview people in what that person would bring to their company. And the truth be told
Mm.
is my company wasn't founded for what you do for me, but it's what I can do for you.
Okay. Mm,
And if your goals don't align up with my goals, then we already know that this relationship won't work. So why bother moving forward?
mm. So how
Right.
does it
So
like
if you
actually? Yeah.
let's do it. Well, it's 5 years from today. Okay.
Mhm. Mm.
Tell me what your life looks like. Tell me about your house. Tell me about your animals. Tell me about everything you have.
Yeah.
It's 5 years. You have it everything you want. What does that look like?
Yeah. It's I, I'm doing something that I'm really passionate about.
No, no, you can't be mythological. It is. You have it. What is it?
It's uh it's working on my business.
What's your business? You have to say it. That's the
It's
key here.
Yeah.
Have to say it.
I have a marketing company. I have a full-fledged team, and they're working for me. I have a beautiful wife and I have a big house and
How many
I'm a
bedrooms?
car guy. I'm a car guy. I
Okay.
must have like a luxury car. Yeah. So that's my picture.
Okay. So
Mhm.
now what you just told me is I can't work with you directly as a dog trainer because if you notice, nowhere does it say that you wanted to make an impact over dogs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You said, now, as a business consultant or a marketing company, we could work together because you just
Mhm.
said that you want to have a marketing company, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
will have
Yeah.
a marketing company.
Mhm.
You will have this. So what I can do is you and I could team up and we can market together and I could teach you some marketing skills and you can take it
Mhm.
to a whole new level. I could teach you business stuff. So you and I can work together, not necessarily as a trainer or as an
Mhm.
employee or as
Mhm.
a franchisee,
Mhm.
but because why? You are looking at it going, this, I have a marketing company, I have these things. Well, I'm not a marketing company.
Mhm.
So you just told me that you and I cannot be employee or partner
Yeah,
unless I get into
yeah.
marketing. See how
I
you're
was saying like
answering my.
what was the usual response do you get like when you
Oh,
are
I'll tell you an exact story. I'll tell you a real story that happened.
when
So the one person I asked this question to, her name is Amanda, and she's actually the owner of our North Carolina location.
Mhm.
And she called up and she was looking for a job. Okay. And now here I'll tell you the funniest thing is the first time she called up, it said we're not hiring and we good luck. Right. And because we just couldn't take it. I was very busy at the time. I just couldn't take on any growth at the time.
Mhm.
But she kept coming back. She came back 5 times. And on the fifth time, I finally called her on the
Mhm.
phone. And I'm talking to her on the phone, and I said to her the same question. I asked her, "It's 5 years from today. What do you have?" And she says, I have a house. I have a fenced-in yard with all my animals playing. I own my own pet training business. I own this.
Okay.
I own," and she named it
Mhm.
all, right?
Mhm.
So I said to her, "I'm very sorry, but I cannot hire you to work for my company." And she goes, "Well, my God, what did I say wrong?" And I said, "Well, you said you wanted to own your own pet training company,
Mhm.
which means
Mhm.
if I hired you as an employee, the
Yeah.
first thing would happen is you're going to be looking for your exit to start your own business."
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's what she
Mhm.
told me, right?
Mhm.
Even without her saying it, isn't that what you heard?
Mhm. Definitely.
Okay, so I heard that too in that statement. So then I said to her, I said, "So I'm going to give you a different offer.
Mhm.
How about you open your own Blue Line Canine location?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, I don't have any money." I said, I didn't ask for money. What
Mhm.
I offered you was an opportunity to open a Blue Line Canine location. Are you interested? Because what was her 5 year goal?
Yeah, to own a training company. Yeah.
She didn't tell me a name of the player, right? So if I offer a company,
Yeah.
so if I came in and became her business partner, that would make my goal with her line up, right?
Mhm.
Well, now she owns Blue Line Canine in
Wow.
Gardner, North Carolina.
Mhm.
And in the past few years, she has been extremely successful, has grown the company from zero to, I'm not going to say the amount of money, but let's say, I will say it. So $500,000 a year revenue.
Wow.
She has employees. She's growing.
Mhm.
She's become so successful that I've even relocated me and my family to North Carolina to help her continue to grow.
Mhm.
She is in 2 years of her opening her brick and mortar. She is now expanding and doubling in size. So
Wow.
she's already relocating her brick and mortar to a double size location.
Mhm.
So she's full on rack. But how did that interview go?
Yeah.
See how that works?
Mhm.
When she told me what her goals were those goals line up with this
Mhm.
company?
Mhm. So
She wanted to
basically,
be
you aligned that her goal to something that, that's
can
something.
be possible with me.
Mm,
So
mm,
instead of it being where what do you bring to my company? Because that's what she was trying to tell me.
mm.
The question is, what can I do for you, not what you can do for me?
Wow.
Because everybody goes into a job interview and lies.
Mm.
I'm really passionate about dogs. I love dogs. But when the truth be told is they wake up in the morning, the only thing they really care about is a mocha chocolate latte from Starbucks.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they're craving in the morning, right? They're
Mm,
not going to give up that coffee to expand their lives. They're not going to do those things.
mm,
So when you ask somebody what they really want in life and what they have when that
mm,
opportunity comes, they're telling you what it is. And the question comes down to you as a company is,
mm,
can your company help them? If not, don't bring them in. Then they become a poisonous fruit. And how often are you retraining trainers? How often are you doing these things?
mm,
That's not passion. That's not love. That's not true care for your clients and the dogs.
mm.
When when Amanda told me exactly what she wanted, and what a coincidence, we can make that happen under the Blue Line Canine name, then she's a perfect person to bring in the
Perfect. Yeah.
company,
Mm,
right? And then she uses those questions to bring in her staff. And every one of our staff has the ability and future to grow into their own business or stay within. Because unlike other companies, I don't need your money, and nor do I want your money. I want you to be happy, and your success is my success. So we're
Wow.
not sitting here trying to be like, hey, pay me $100,000 and I can make you a franchise. No, 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 no. If you have what it takes and you truly care what it is, then come on out here.
Mhm,
Maybe you're not for Blue Line, but you like my methods or my stuff. Great. Then come out here and learn. I'll teach you. You don't
mhm,
need to be a part of my company. I don't need that part of it, right?
mhm.
But each person is completely different. And the question just comes down to is do we line up together? And if we don't, then there's nothing wrong with that either. Right? Like, hey, I need marketing obviously to hire my company. So you would be a great person to work with, but not
Mhm,
partner. Because
mhm.
you want a successful marketing company where you get a luxury car and a big house and a wife, right? I don't want a marketing company.
Yeah.
So we could work together, but it ain't gonna work for me if I brought you into Blue Line. We would butt heads, right?
Yeah. Mm,
See how that we already know it. So we can work together at a distance, but we can't work for each other because it's just gonna be conflict.
mm.
Nothing wrong with it. But see how that one question gave me all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So how many other locations do you have? Like Timber franchise.
We currently have three. We have one in Joppa, Maryland, Gardner, North Carolina, and Katy, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a couple of other ones, but the owners, once again, once they came to that point where they're like, "Hey, I want to do things my way," or outside of it, they went on their way, and we remained friends and coaching and working together.
Mm-hmm.
No one's obligated. There's no real
Mm-hmm.
contracts or anything like that that's said within Blue Line that keeps you within it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a partnership, and
Mm-hmm.
if you feel like, hey, it's time for you to go a different direction, or you feel like your core values are a different termination, then we want you to go and we'll support you and help you and
Mm-hmm.
move you along those lines because again, it's what it is. The mission is to help bridge the gap, and not everyone's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you share like some of the challenges and lessons you have learned from expanding Blue Line franchising?
Yeah, so the government sucks. There's tons of fees and fines and
Yeah. Mm.
corporations and accountants and lawyers and trademarking. I think the biggest problem I've ever come across is trademarking. We
Okay.
are trademarked. We are registered with the Trade Commission to have our name registered and trademarked.
Mm-hmm.
But ironically, everybody, because they can own their name within their state, right? Meaning in their state,
Mm-hmm.
they never check trademarks. So then they go and they go to Google and they see that they can't buy Blue Line K-9. So then it becomes Blue Line K-9 of XYZ slash 349er.com, right? And
Mm-hmm.
instead of them realizing that you're now essentially violating trademark laws, that right and it's not a respect thing. It's they do those things because they think they're creative, I guess, or they could do it because they can get their LLC in their state, in their local state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to file you got to get lawyers to educate people that are uneducated in business.
Good.
Most people never check trademarks, and they really should because that hurts their business and their momentum. So one of the most difficult thing is trying to have friendly conversations with people that get ignorant over the lack of knowledge. Hey, we paid the money, we registered. I'm very sorry, but we
Mm-hmm.
did it. Um, and we did that because we're trying to keep our name and our culture storyline going. And if somebody else takes our name and uses it, and they break our, that makes me look bad, or that makes my company look bad, and build and breaks what we're trying to do. So that's probably one of the hardest things because I never want to see anybody struggle in business, and I'm always there to help them. So when you try to talk to them and then they treat you like shit over it, pardon my friends, but they treat you bad over it, um, it hurts because you're really not trying to have that negative,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it occurs. That's probably the hardest thing for me personally is those things. And if I would tell anybody anything, is look, you never know where your business is going to go. I didn't know where my business was going to go either.
Yeah.
Uh, and now that it's getting bigger and it's in multiple states, um, I never realized it would do what it's doing, right? So if I could go back in time, I would have trademarked earlier. I would have done
Mm-hmm.
things a little bit differently
Mm-hmm.
in that aspect. But it's a hindsight scenario. I know when people come to
Yeah.
me, I tell them, listen, if you're coming up with a name and you Google your name to buy the or GoDaddy your name, whatever, to get the .com, and your whenever your name is not available at .com, change your name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
If you are unable to get what you want .com, it's already telling you somebody else has it, which means that's going to stunt your growth when
Mm-hmm.
you become successful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you think about it, Disney World or Walt Disney or whatever the company's name is, and McDonald's and everything like that, they sue people every day of the week for anything that even looks like their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
And if you're a small business, that's not what you want to deal with.
Mm.
So if you can't .com your name, then don't do your name. Change the name. Come up with something different.
Mm.
And
Got
not don't just add a letter or two to change it. Oh, it's
it.
no, change it.
Yeah.
Completely change it because
Uh-huh.
you're gonna one day come across as you become successful, and that becomes harder.
Mm.
Because then everything that you ever built to brand and get that success level is going to be tarnished when you have to give it all up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you can't do that, don't do it. And then
Mm.
once you do that, then go trademark it. So then it's yours. So
Mm.
then as you become big or become bigger, right? You have that level of protection and enforcement to protect what you built. That's the whole point of trademarking. As for franchising versus licensing versus partnerships versus that,
Mm.
there's a lot of good and bad, but the truth be told is it's up to the individual to figure out what's more for them, right?
Yeah. Mm.
So I can't tell you franchising is good or bad. I can't tell you that licensing is good or bad. I can't tell you that partnerships are good or bad.
Mm.
What I can tell you is that each person that's involved in it is completely different. So when you franchise, there's limitations, but that could be your personality and
Yeah.
that's what you like and makes you very good. Licensing is the same, right? It's all about what you want in your company to make it good or bad. And that's why I really can't tell you good or bad to it because they have their own benefits to each level. So when you're deciding those things, you really need to take the time to see what's good for you and your personality and your drive and what your future is because you know having a partnership, well, that means you're literally getting married to whoever
Yeah.
you're partnering
Mm.
with, right?
Mm.
And if they're bad, they're lazy, they go through something, then you're
Mm.
just as involved, right?
Mm.
Licensing allows you to charge a rent for the use of your stuff, and then but here's the downside to it is that your enforcement on that is very minimal. So like if they decide to rent your logo, for example, and stick
Mm.
it on the back of horse, and make horse tail ties on it, well,
Mm.
technically, as long as they pay you, they can do whatever they want,
Yeah.
right? So that's licensing, right? And then franchising, well, there's a lot of oversight, licensing, state fees, all these things that come with that, legal stuff that makes it really, really hard. And there's no room for error. So in dog training, franchising is very difficult because you want to give your trainers the ability to adjust for your clients. And in franchising, there's really not a whole lot of room for that. So that's why if you ever walk into a McDonald's, no matter where you are in the world,
Mm.
McDonald's is McDonald's.
Yeah.
They have the same tiles, the same arches, the same
Mm.
food, the same taste, the same everything. That's a franchise.
Mm.
Um, if you go into like a licensing agreement, you know, um, for example, like sports, right? You could put the sports team logo on a hoodie, on a sweatshirt. You can alter the colors a little bit. They have a little bit more freedom because they're licensing the use of something.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the partnership, right? But then again, you can have the greatest partnership in the world, right? Where you know your spot, I know my spot, and that partnership is just uncandid, right? And successful, right? Because you have two supportive people. So you don't know what's good or bad until you know what you're looking for and what you want to do. So I can't tell you one way or the other. I've done them all.
Mm.
Each one of them had an up and a down to them, like I said. So I really can't tell you that one's better than the other.
Mm.
It's
Because it
just your
depends
preference.
upon person to person.
It does, and your goals in life, right? It's what you want
Mm.
to do in life.
Yeah. Mm.
For me, my main focus is helping people achieve what they want, even like the level of success, right? My definition of success is doing what I want, when I want, how I want, with whom I want, the way I want. That is my definition of success. Where other people say success is having a $1 million mansion or $1 billion
Mm.
mansion now, right?
Mm.
Luxury cars, going out to fancy restaurants, so on and so forth, right? Where to me, hey, listen, I drive a 2008 Toyota Tundra and I can't see myself in anything but it. I bought that car cash. I love that truck.
Mm.
I've it's close to 300,000 miles on it. You could buy me a Maserati tomorrow, which I was talking about buying one the other day. I was like, oh man, I really like this Maserati. And then I found
Mm.
out the oil change on it was on average $1,000. And I was like, no, I'm not buying a Maserati. I like my truck. Right. And it's to me, right? I loved my truck and I still love my truck. And I can't even fathom driving a different car. I feel like I would cheat on it, my truck. Right. But that was my truck. You know what I mean? Like that's my truck.
Yeah.
So it's a weird scenario where I'm like, I can't see myself in anything but my truck.
Mm.
Right. The convenience factor, these things, right? So cars are not a thing for me. right? I'm like, hey, that no matter what you put in a car, power windows, power locks, power this, massagers, whatever it is, well, I'm only using it to get from point A to point B. So
Yeah.
how useful
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that vehicle to me?
Just
I
the
don't
way you view your life differently, somebody else live your life differently. Yeah.
and that's why I don't sit there and say one way is better or worse. It's just
Yeah.
my way, right? This
Yeah, yeah.
and that's why my definition of success is doing what I want, when I want, how I want, with whom I want, the way I
Mm,
want. That's
mm,
why that's important to me, is because when I was able to first be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna buy a Lego set this weekend, right? And people say, Mike, that's a waste of time and money. Hey, listen, Lego is my reward.
mm,
Me and my son, we have a YouTube channel for Lego. I love Lego.
mm.
Um, I build tons of Lego. We have over 300 square feet of Lego in my house, and
Wow.
people go, "That's a kid's toy." Hey, listen, that's my success. That's me.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
love.
that's your
I
thing.
love
Yeah.
building Lego. It gives me
Mm,
my trophy. It's
mm,
what I need for my mental energy.
mm,
Right.
mm,
Somebody else says I want to buy the new Maserati, Jaguar, Tesla, whatever. That's theirs. I will never shun anybody for choosing what they choose.
mm.
But your definition, my definition of success, are always going to differ, and you have to respect those
Yeah.
in people individually. And that's why even deciding where you want to do it, how you want to do it in your business, like how big you want to get or how small you want to be,
Mm,
is very different. I actually had the privilege of meeting somebody a couple of weeks ago that was extremely successful. So he became a multimillionaire in his industry,
mm,
and he sold his company and retired.
mm,
About 6 months after he retired, he mentally couldn't stand not having a job, which I could completely relate to, right?
mm.
So he buys a 3D printer, okay, and he starts making these like knick-knacky things, and he goes to flea markets and he's selling them, okay? So
Yeah,
multimillionaire going to a
yeah,
flea
yeah,
market. There's no joke.
yeah,
He
yeah.
goes every weekend to a
Uh-huh.
flea market to sell these 3D printed
Uh-huh.
containers, dumb things. Like he just comes up with
Yeah.
dumb ideas and he's just
Because
printing.
they are just being like love with the game, right?
Yeah. So
That's what gives the
it's
passion.
it. It's it. So he's selling these things for like 50 cents. Like he had a dumpster on fire. Like he printed this dumpster on fire in 2024, and another one. Like it's just dumb little things. And he had these little anyway.
Yeah.
So I went up to him, I met him, and then I found out who he was, and I kept talking to him, and we connected. And then he started telling me a story on how somebody, after he retired, and he started doing this a couple months ago, that he was approached that they could sell it on mass levels. Hey, why don't we put it online and start selling? He goes, no. And he's like, well, why not? We can make more money. He's like, yeah, no, because he's already hit his peak of money, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not the driving force. So
Yeah.
to him, he spends Monday through Friday 3D printing dumb ideas, and then on the weekend he sells them for like he's not even making money on it. He's losing money when he sells them. But for him, right,
Yeah,
it was
that's
the
the
it was the
game. That's the game. That's what you want to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. It's an occupation. It's a hobby for him. He doesn't want to make money doing it. He's like, I
Mm,
already made my money. I'm already retired.
mm,
I already have all these things, right? He's like, I don't need that stuff,
mm.
nor do I want those things. So he's like, I don't want to scale. I don't want to this. I don't want to that. It pays for everything. Everything's paid for. I'm not spending any, you know what I mean? Like he even tries not to make money and he's still making money on it to where he's still profitable,
Yeah.
right?
Uh,
Because that's the mindset. Like he just knows how to do it in business. And that's where you have to sit there and you have to sometimes ask yourself, like, hey, do I really want to be McDonald's, or am I happy where I'm at?
mm,
Are you getting what you want to achieve in the lifestyle that you have, right? And that's where I think for me, even myself, that's why it is difficult to say for one way or the other. I could have grown to 100 locations, and I decided not to. I want
yeah.
to keep my mission. And it
Mm,
goes back into I'm going to go one by one when I find the right people. So when those right people show up at my door,
mm,
then I'm going to partner with them and I'm going to grow. And
mm,
that's what makes our company so successful. And the ones that just want to learn, I'm going to let them learn. Like our doors open to everybody.
mm,
Anybody that's interested in working with me, I'm game. All you got to do is reach out to me, and I will stop what I'm doing to work with you. All you got to do is ask.
mm.
That's simple as that.
Amazing, amazing. So this next section would be like advice for aspiring pet entrepreneurs. Starting a pet business is that can be exciting yet daunting journey. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own pet business? Let's say in your specific niche.
So, if you want to start a dog training company, the first thing I'd probably do is suggest that you spend some time finding a true mentor.
Okay. Mm,
And that's probably one of the hardest things that I personally went through in my journey, was finding the mentor that meant a lot to me. And
mm, mm,
um, I'll tell you another part of my inspiring journey. The reason why this is important to hear would be is The movie K-9 came out in 1980. I think it was Jim Belushi, right? It came out movie called K-9. It's an
Mm.
old movie, I know. I know I'm aging myself here, but it was an inspiring movie to me, right? And the dogs used in that movie were named Jerry Lee. Well, my first person I ever got to mentor was the guy that trained those dogs,
Okay.
who then I later found out also trained the wolves in White Fang and worked with Ace Ventura Pet Detective with some of the animals on that show.
Mm.
My
Mm.
first mentor was him. And
Mm.
it was an amazing journey for me because he wasn't in business where I was. So it wasn't like a business issue. There was no money conflict. You know, I paid him the money to learn under him and we became friends. And then he suggested other trainers to go and apprentice under. So he
Mm.
connected me to other people and I went and did the apprenticeships under them as well.
Mm.
And then after I returned, me and him were out, and he asked me to come visit him and help him do a demonstration one day for
Mm.
his business. And when I showed up with my dog and we demoed and we were teaching and talking, um, he turned to me and he said, "Hey, you beat me. You're way smarter than I am, and I can't wait to see your journey of success continue.
Yeah.
But you've now exceeded what I know, and I'm proud of you." And that
Mm.
meant a lot to me to hear that. And I think that's what's inspiring because, you know, when you find a true mentor, they want to see you successful. And instead of
Yeah.
him holding me back,
Mm-hmm.
he connected me with other people.
Yeah.
And then he noted it and patted me on the back for it. And he's been an associate and friend of mine for that time period and continues. And it's an amazing part of it because that story is the inspiration and I look forward to. That's why I even said like, "Hey, I'm going to teach you everything I know, but I'm going to continue learning because I'm not done." Right? Like he was done. I wasn't.
Mm.
I'm not, right? So you're
Mm.
inspiring me to keep going and you know, so for me I look at things as finding the right mentor that's going to help you in business, find the
Yeah.
mentor that's going to help you in your industry that you can go to for problem solving. Um because you're going to come across that and you're never done learning. That mentor will change. I will admit that you will have different mentors throughout your journey. But
Mm.
getting started, you need to find the mentor that's going to help you where you struggle the most. So in the dog training world, it might be dog training. It could be business, could be marketing. I don't really know what your strength or weakness would be, but find the mentor that's going to help you in your weakness, not your strength. So then
Mm.
you're leaning on them during your biggest struggle to alleviate that stress and hiccup in your journey, right?
Mm.
And that's why I say they're going to change. Um, that's where I would probably say it. And
Mm.
don't be afraid to pay them money. That's probably the other thing I'd probably tell somebody.
Yeah.
Don't Mentors cost money. Things cost money,
Definitely. Yeah.
and you invest in yourself.
Mm.
I would say the next big tip I think I've ever learned in business was 10% of your money should go in savings. 10% of your money should go into re-education. So if you make $100,000 a year, 10,000 of it should be going towards learning.
Mm.
And if you're not investing in that, then you're completely wrong. You're
Mm.
going to fail.
Mm.
If you think you know it all, you are wrong. You're going to
Definitely.
fail.
Yeah. Mm.
You know,
Mm.
there is no peak. If
Mm.
that makes any sense.
Mm.
There's
Mm.
just isn't.
Mhm. Also, building a brand that client trust and return to takes times and effort, right? So, what do you think is the key to building a strong brand in the pet industry?
Uh, I would say building a brand in any industry is for you to truly believe in what you put behind the brand. So, to tell you what came to our brand was simply what the words and what it represented to me, right? So, my core values is impact, growth, commitment, and excellence. And
Okay.
in order to put those four core values of impact, growth, commitment, and excellence,
Mhm.
where did I see them the most? I see them in knighthood. Um, so we created a shield, right?
Okay.
The shield is knights, right? Knights
Mm.
have shields, right?
Mm.
And I always said that my shield is meant to protect anybody that embraces me.
Mm.
So if you believe in our core values, if you're willing to stand by those core values, then the shield will protect you from the evils out there, right? From the people that are against it. So we
Mm.
created a shield. That's where our logo came from.
Yeah. Wow.
The brand colors come from the state of Maryland. So if you look at my logo, our main colors there is the state of Maryland flag,
Mm.
which is the home of where we started the company. I was living in Maryland. That's where I met my wife. That's where we started the company. So we embraced their flag, right? So the flag is the part of the shield.
Mm.
Blue line. Obviously, I was a police officer at the time, so we came up with Blue Line. But
Mm.
most people don't know what Blue Line stands for. It doesn't really mean law enforcement. It represents the thin line between uh, chaos and structure. And what was my goal as a dog trainer was to stop the chaos and provide structure to my clients.
Mm.
So there's the name. It's where it came down to it. Now I believe in all of that I just said.
Mm.
So it's my passion. I believe in it. I live by it. I represent it, and that means everywhere I go, I'm named. Even in this, there's a Blue Line K-9 a T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
My cars are wrapped. My life is. I have it tattooed on me. I believe in it. I live it. I
Mm.
everything. And if you don't truly embrace those things, then
Mm.
you're just not going to have it. And the other thing I always tell people would be is that if you're trying to build a brand, remember nobody believes in your brand more than you do. So that means you shouldn't be wearing Aeropostale or anything else like that because nobody knows about you. They know about Aeropostale and all those
Yeah.
other brands, which means for
Mm.
the same amount of money it costs you to buy one T-shirt from Aeropostale, you can buy 10 T-shirts screen printed with your brand on it and wear it every day of the week.
Mm.
Because everywhere you go and you should be representing your company because nobody
Yeah.
else will.
Yeah.
And if you
Wow.
don't believe in you, how
Mm.
is somebody else supposed to believe in you? So pet industry or not pet industry,
Yeah.
building a brand is building a brand. In the words of Ray Kroc, no one was going to buy a hamburger from a guy named Kroc.
Mm.
So he bought the name McDonald's
Mm.
because he even believed in the name McDonald's more than he believed in himself.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Mm.
The main company in franchising, everybody knows,
Mm.
got to
Okay.
believe in it.
Mm. And looking
I think I
ahead,
answered it.
what are your plans for the future of Blue Line K9? Like any exciting development or projects in the time pipeline?
So this year, really exciting because we are growing our Gardner location, and like I said earlier, we relocated to North Carolina.
Mm.
So we are looking to put on train the trainer camps and open them up to everybody and anybody.
Mm.
But we will not be putting a whole lot of marketing behind it.
Mm.
The idea is that we are looking for the people that want to it, and they're going to seek us, and they're going to want to make a change. So we are going to
Mm.
offer train the trainer camps throughout the year. We have grown into speaking engagements. We are speaking at a lot of home and garden shows, giving out free education.
Okay.
I'm really interested in starting. So we have a weekly podcast, or not podcast, but it's a weekly video or vlog that comes out
Mm.
called Dog Talk, and
Dog talk, yeah. I
Dog
was
Talk,
checking
yeah,
your
that
YouTube.
comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's on our YouTube channel,
Mm.
and our Dog Talks come out weekly, and we're looking to expand that into a cooking show. So we're looking to take our YouTube into a cooking show where you learn how to cook for your pets. So teaching
Okay.
you how to like make fun treats in your home and stuff like that. Because what's really where we really got blessed is a couple of our staff members here at Blue Line Gardner were former chefs. They were professional chefs that
Wow.
career changed. So
Wow.
they're going to be our cooks. We're
Mm.
hoping to produce a TV or a YouTube TV show or
Mhm.
show, right? Not TV, but a show to teach people how to make fun treats for their at home for their
Mm.
pets. Like show you the
Mm.
ingredients, watch how you do it, and then if I really could, if I can get the right team together, I have a dream to bridge the gap. Like I said earlier about people in their industries, right? The pet industry in particular. I really would love to have the ability to make a show where we highlighted everybody in the industry, like went to their place and showed why the owners created their business and made them unique. Now I don't know if it'll be this year, but it is a goal of mine. I'm working really hard. I'm putting myself through production school to learn how to make a TV show, so I
Wow.
can learn how to do this. Again, I'm
So
that
that's the
guy that
next
goes
thing that you are learning. That's the next thing you are going
yeah
to get
to go
obsessed
into
with.
this because and again it's all the steps, it's that
Yeah.
I like I said earlier, my goal was to bridge the gap, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
it might take years, but I'm going to do it. And I'm closer now than I was, 17 years ago when I started the company, but
Mm.
we're getting there little by little.
Mm.
We're getting there,
Mm.
and with the right people and the right opportunities, and
Mm.
before you know it, I'll have my show, and we'll be bridging the gap between trainers and groomers and trainers and trainers and trainers and groomers and groomers and groomers and kennels and daycares and because I really think everybody has a successful company, and there really isn't competition. I don't look
Mm.
at trainers as my competition at all.
Yeah.
I don't believe in competition in business. And I think if somebody was starting a company right now, I would tell them the number one thing that they need to understand is there is no competition.
Okay.
You are the only you, which means when
Mm.
people are purchasing from you, they're purchasing from you, which means if they don't purchase from you, they wouldn't have purchased from you. You know, this isn't basketball or NFL where there's a championship at the end of this.
Mm.
So you might have similar products, but you're not similar. And
Mm.
people purchase from the people that they can relate to, which means
Yeah.
you're not in competition. You know,
Mm.
there's hundreds and thousands of dog trainers out there, but they don't do me and I don't do them. And
Mm.
if people are going to them and they're not coming to me, then that wasn't a game to win. We weren't in the same basketball game or the point system, right? So the customer went with who they went with. I mean, you
Yeah.
think about it. You hire a plumber. You pick the plumber that was referred to you by a friend, or the way they treated you, or any of those things. That's the way it works. I mean, if you ever gone to a food court, there's plenty of food. They're not in
Mm.
competition, right? Like you go to the
Yeah.
mall, you go to a food court, and what happens? You see all these different restaurants, and the
Mm.
craziest thing about it is they all have people in line.
Yeah.
So they're not competing because sometimes you want one restaurant, sometimes you want another. Just
Mm.
the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And looking at the dog training industry, like what exciting trends or innovation do you see emerging? Like how do you stay ahead of the curve?
How do I stay up on
Stay
like what's
ahead
going
of
on?
the curve.
There is no head of the curve. What I've learned a long time ago is there's no such thing as new knowledge. It's just repackaged.
Okay.
So when you really break it down, is you really got to go backwards to go
Yeah. Like
forwards.
you said, the foundation. Yeah.
If you learn the foundation, then the real question is how did you package it, right? All dog trainers are using classical, operant, and a clever Hans effect. The question just comes down to is do they know that and can they repackage it to fit their client's needs? So in our industry in particular, you have to look at who your client is and then package it for their convenience the best way. So, for example, now after the COVID stuff that went down, there's a
Mm.
lot of people working
Mm.
from home. There's a lot more podcasts.
Mhm.
There's a lot of other people that are going out on hiking. People are working virtual. There's a whole different lifestyle here in the United States.
Mhm.
In particular, I can't speak for outside the country, but inside the country, I've been out the privilege of traveling, and you can see there's a turn. Prior to
Mhm.
COVID, Monday through Friday, people went to work, kids went to school. Saturdays and Sundays was your time off, right? Now
Mhm.
people work from home, they're podcasting. Entertainment is different. You could see that there's a whole different mindset of way people go to breweries. Breweries didn't really exist back then.
Mhm.
Distilleries, like there's different lifestyles, right? So that means the question comes down to is, am I taking the same knowledge and repackaging it to fit what my customers do? And how I stay a part of this is being involved in my community and seeing the trends. And instead
Mm.
of listening to the trends and being told by a marketing company what people like,
Mm.
I'm interviewing the people.
Yeah.
And you can see it, right? So if you see a brewery popping up and then another brewery popping up, then most likely you should be looking to work with breweries. Like you should be looking at what's going on. In
Mm.
particular, here, there's a lot of cultural food, gathering positions, flea markets, right? And you go to the flea market and you'll see everybody walking around. So that
Mm.
means you're seeing the problems. Now the question is, what are you going to do to help them?
Mm.
So I don't really just watch trends of my own industry. I watch trends of all industries, right? Study the real
Mm.
estate market. You can see where people are moving. Are they moving to townhouses, condos, single family homes, multifamily homes, right? You
Mm.
could see what people are doing by paying attention to other marketplaces and seeing what the trends are. And then you can fix what your problems are going to be in your business, right?
Mm. Mm.
Um, Plumbing went from copper piping to that, I forgot what it's called now. It's like flex pipe or something like that. It's like plasticky
Mhm.
piping, right? So that means
Mm.
if you're trying to sell copper, it ain't going to work, right? Because it doesn't come around, right? So, one industry has an effect on another industry. It's
Yeah.
just the way it
Mhm.
works.
Mhm. Last question from my end. Like, what was the most important lesson you learned as an entrepreneur in the pet industry as a whole?
So I would say the biggest lesson I learned as an entrepreneur is that no one's going to believe in you until you're successful.
Yeah.
So that thing I can tell you right now, when you're starting a
Yeah.
company,
Uh,
everybody around you thinks you're going to fail and
yeah.
you should just go get a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
hardest thing I
That's
had to learn.
universal.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
universal. It doesn't matter.
Mm. Mm.
As for the pet industry, I think the hardest thing that I had to learn in the pet industry in particular was that there's a lot of emotional competition in the industry. So you're not going to receive as much support um, as you think you would, right? When you're not in the industry and you're just getting in, it feels like everyone's got your back. And then when you get in the industry, it feels like everyone's stabbing you in the back.
Mm.
The truth is that people are just people.
Yeah.
They're not stabbing you, they're not hurting you. And
Mm.
as long as you keep to you being you, you will do wonders in this industry. But I was in the carpet cleaning industry. I was in the mortgage industry. I was in the real estate industry. They're all the same. All of them, you will feel the same way, no matter what. So don't think that it's just ours or any of those things. But I think it hurts a little bit more with the pet industry just because there is a lot more emotions tied
Yeah.
into our
Yeah. Yeah.
our client, which is the dog, right?
Mm.
Like everybody loves their dog, right?
Mm.
Um, so I think that's what creates a little bit more of that hurtfulness, right?
Yeah.
But just stay true to your belief and why you're doing it, and you'll see it level out. And I think it hits it first, and then it levels out because I definitely don't hear it as much as I used to. When I was first starting out, man, people hated my guts. I mean, you put me in anywhere near another dog trainer, and they just, oh man, it just felt like somebody was trying to like literally stab me through a phone or something like that. It's like you could feel it, right?
Uh,
Um, Years later, I don't feel it as much. I will also tell you one of my proudest moments was this is I love being introduced to people as a dog trainer and not as anything else that I do. Right. So when I show up and my wife would be like, "Oh, what does your husband do?" And she's like, "Oh, he's a dog trainer." And people are like, "Oh," as if like there's like something wrong with me.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
Mm.
don't worry, don't let anybody knock you for your career as a dog trainer. You are successful, but
Mm.
it also works to your advantage because then you can see how many people around you are just full of it.
Yeah.
Because when I was a police officer, everyone's like, "Oh, he's a cop," and they would ask you millions of questions about being a cop, or can you get out of a ticket, or like it's prestigious that you're a police officer or you're a
Mm.
doctor or a lawyer type of thing,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
But as a dog trainer, it's like you're like, "Oh, you're a failure" type of thing. And listen, I love being a dog trainer. It's probably my proudest title next to being a father and husband.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's a really good thing. So don't get discouraged. But yeah, it hurts when you first get started. And then when
Mm.
people see that you're not going away, it it levels out and you'll be all right.
Mm. Mhm. Definitely. So yeah, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us from your personal experience with the growth of Blue Line K-9. It's clear that your passion and dedication to both dogs and their owners have had profound impact. Your advice and insight will surely resonate with many pet entrepreneurs and dog lovers out there. For our listener, if you're interested in learning more about Michael's work or Blue Line K-9, be sure to check out the link in the description below. I will leave all the links. And yeah, thank you again, Michael.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yep. It was amazing.